My friends, this is Black Captain 8 here again. Today's going to be a slightly different video than what we usually do here. This is going to be 6 pieces of advice I would give myself if I were ever going to merge alliances ever again. Hello, my friends. Live long and prosper. This is what remains of the alliance that I created from the ground up myself. And of course, I attracted some really amazing players to it over the weeks and months that we were getting this thing going. It was really fantastic alliance. What ended up happening, however, was that we identified that there was a drop-off in players after things kind of went a little bit. We didn't really have a very defined vision of what we were, and we started to notice that the players at the top end and the players at the bottom end were having completely different gaming experiences. There was different goals when it came to alliance events and things, and it really became kind of evident that we were maybe 2, maybe more than that, alliances all rolled into one. We did enjoy hanging out, playing the game together for the most part, but it was evidence that it was time for us to try to move up for those of us that were more competitive, and for the other ones that just wanted a more relaxed gaming environment that they weren't getting out of the game anymore either because of the competitive players, that we needed a place for them to call home again. This alliance of ours, to give a little bit of backstory, that we created was a very open and accommodating alliance to newer and mid-range players. It was really a great place to have people learn the game and kind of graduate up to figure out what their playstyle really was, whether they were heavy PvPers, or whether they were extremely competitive, whether they just wanted to be laid back, and go from there. So what we ended up doing is reaching out to other alliances on the server to try to figure out who we were most compatible with and go ahead and make a move. So we try to get everybody in the same area. The people who were very competitive moving to a more competitive space, the people that were less competitive either staying in this alliance, which if you'll see here with the member count, some are still here, or moving into one of the larger alliances that was more laid back, fit in more with their own playstyle. Now, I wish I could tell you everything went great, everyone's happy. That's still not the case. We've done this maybe 2 weeks ago is when we started this merger, and there's still some people that are not very happy. I lost some friends, honestly, with it, and this is kind of a cautionary tale for things that you should really keep in mind if you are going to attempt a merge in the future. So the absolute paramount piece of advice that I could give is to make sure that your culture for the alliance that you have, whatever it is that's important to you and your players, whatever playstyle you have. Look, if you are the pirates of the server and you just want to go hard and be those pirates and you're just a little gang of space murderers and that's what you like, find other space murderers. If you are total Care Bears and PvP just is disgusting to you and you want to stay away from it, find people who are also disgusted or PvP averse so that you are with like-minded people. If you are extremely competitive on the leaderboards and that's what you care about, go find those people. Ultimately, this is a game and you're going to want to have as much fun as possible, so you're going to want to try to make sure that you're meshing yourself and your play style with other people like that. And if you're an officer, you have the added responsibility of making sure that your players are also engaging with like-minded players that are also hopefully respectful to each other and the other people on the server as well. So that was the first thing that we did, is try to reach out to some alliance that we felt like had very similar values to us, had a very similar culture, as we mentioned, and we sent one of our Commodores over there for a little while to kind of get a feel for the place. And thankfully everything seemed like it would mesh pretty quickly, and we were happy with that. However, there is some stuff that you could do to make sure that things go a little more smoothly than how they happen for us. I'd say something that you probably want to consider is if you are a large alliance, you want to try to find a smaller alliance, and if you are a small alliance, you probably want to find a larger alliance. We were 2 very similar sized alliances before we tried to go ahead and merge, and I think that it would probably help tremendously if you are in a merge situation, if there is a clearly dominant and clearly non-dominant alliance when you are attempting to make that happen. So it's very clear that if there's a clash in policy or whatever, which one would prevail. That is not something that we had in place when we did our merger. I'd also say if your server relies heavily on diplomacy, that you want to make sure that at least the allies of both of the alliances are merging together are aware that the merge is happening, what the consequences of that are, whether you fully expect to abandon one alliance and their territory. We'll get into that in a minute. If you will be sister alliances and you will fervently defend each other. Now, the reason that I bring up the diplomacy is because if you watch in this clip behind me that I'll show you, I did manage to go ahead and start recording some of this. It's not formatted well, you won't hear me talking. However, we didn't really do a good job letting our allies know from either alliance. If you look in here, this is server 62, this is Anzat, the territory that we had owned for a very long time and live long and prosper. This is maybe we had more than 30 minutes left in this clip that's happening behind me here. 9 of the alliances in our server showed up. Of course, this is during Scopely's territory takeover event that happened. However, allies were friends, friends were allies, enemies, and it was just crazy. It was insane what was happening here. There was gigantic lag. You could barely make out anybody. Nobody knew what was going on. Everybody was mad at everybody because there was just pure chaos and pandemonium happening in this system for most of the territory takeover. I think it was like a 45-minute takeover, and almost all of it was like this, where you couldn't even tell which alliance you were blowing up. It was just straight up chaos and pretty much a lot of fun. So Hand actually won it here. They're the top in power on the alliance, or on server 62. They were trying to take this territory. They had no idea that it was even going to be defended. They had even less of an idea that their long-standing ally-ish people that helped them a lot in territories and that they helped in territories were going to stand against them. And then of course when that happened, so many people showed up to it. So if you want to avoid what's happening behind me with your allies being marked as enemies temporarily, make sure that you let them know what's going on with your territory situation, with your merging situation, whatever, so that you can work that out. You might still have a battle like this, but there'll be a lot less of the PMs that happen in game and on Discord to try to figure out what's going on and smooth things over. Speaking of Discord, I would highly recommend that when you are attempting to merge with another alliance, that as early as possible, once you decide that yeah, you think you might want to go ahead and do this, get everybody on both sides into, especially your officers, get your officers together first into some Discord server so that you can discuss philosophies, make sure that you'll handle problems in a way that everybody is clear with and on the same page with. And then of course you want to make sure that you start folding those players in together so that any personality conflicts that you'll have, and you will probably have them, especially if you do like we did and merge two alliances that are very similar power and size together, then you will inevitably have some sort of conflict because you just already have those dynamics that work within your greater alliance. You also have smaller groups of players that kind of gravitate towards each other and do things together, so you'll have all sorts of situations you might not have thought you would have, even if your alliance is stable. Our alliance was very stable and happy. The other alliance that we merged into was very stable and happy. We did not anticipate some of the bigger personalities that we had clashing, especially in alliance chat, myself included. And a lot of that probably would have been able to get worked out pretty early on if we had just got everybody into a joint Discord server so that there was a way to talk all that out without all of the heightened emotions, I guess, that come from one side dropping tags to go merge in with another side. So once you have hopefully gotten everyone together in the same Discord server, or if you haven't done that, at the very least you need to have your officers, the ones that are moving from the old alliance to the new alliance, and the ones from the existing alliance need to be on the same page, especially when it comes to your policies. What is your code of conduct? What are the repercussions if that's not met? What do you expect from your players, if you have any expectations at all? How do you run your armadas? Which way do you do that stuff? These things that are kind of just automatic for you once you've been in an alliance for a long time are things that you might not even realize could cause friction points in a merging situation. I would say even if both sides have on paper identical policies for all things, say that's the best case scenario, everything is identical, you still want to make sure that you are checking over those policies, make sure they still apply, and communicating that to everyone, because some of the people in your alliance might never have ever heard of the policies. They might have just kind of fallen in line with everybody else. It might not be completely familiar to your people who have even been there for a long time. They might not have seen the policy in a long time. So even if your policy says one thing and you guys have just kind of turned your back and done something else, maybe you don't realize it. Policies can cause a lot of friction. They did it with us when we did our merger as well. The last thing that I would caution for people really all across the board, whether you're an officer, old alliance, new alliance, whatever's going on, is to make sure that you are patient and as understanding as possible that emotions and tensions will be very high when this happens. People may say things they don't mean, or might say things harsher than they might otherwise have said. People may need a break either from the alliance or for the game even for a little while things are getting worked out. Some people may go off and do their own thing in some other alliance with their other friends, and some people might not want to carry on with the group as it unfolds going forward. They might end up in a completely different alliance. Who knows? Those things might happen. I will say that I would consider this, now that we are about 2 weeks into it, things are pretty good for the people who did stay into the merged alliance. We did slightly change the name from what it was before, and we've got a newer identity kind of figured out. We've worked through a lot of the problems. We have a lot of new friendships as well as the old friends that we brought with us when we did this. However, it was a very messy situation. Don't expect it to go clean. Follow the tips in this video to try to make sure that if you are going to attempt to merge, at least do it wisely, because you may lose friends like I did. You may cause some crazy diplomatic situations on your server, like we did in the huge territory takeover situation where 9 of the alliances on the server were involved. and you may really just need to take a break for a little while you're doing it. I know I tossed a big shield up for a couple of the days and just kind of walked away and figured out things whenever we came back to it, because it is a stressful situation, especially when you have people leaving their home and their family, quote unquote, that they have been playing this game with for months and months, sometimes years, when you're trying to merge. So just be sensitive to that, and remember that everybody who's wearing tags is on the same side. You are working towards the same goals. You may not all be friends. You might have to block some of them if that's what it takes to be able to keep your team coherent, on the same page, working towards the same goals together. Maybe that's what you have to do. Hopefully that's not the case. I know that some of the people that we brought with us were blocked by some of the people that were already in the alliance, and they worked some stuff out. Some people started unblocking stuff. They got repaired some relationships. Some of the relationships did not get repaired, and people went back on block lists. It happens. Ultimately, we did achieve our goal by getting our more competitive players together with more competitive players, and the people that did not make the move with us ended up going with another alliance that we were very friendly with, allied with for a very long time, that was a little bit more low-key, much more friendly towards less competitive players, people who are not as heavy into PvP, etc. I've even changed my name here recently to Berserker Halfdan 8 because I've been getting into PvP a lot more. It is a side of the game that I have neglected quite a bit, and I feel like it is kind of half the game. Really, the sum of this game is greater than the whole of its parts. So if you are just mining all the time and then you just PvP all the time, I think somewhere between that is the balance that is really true enjoyment of the game. When you can balance your PvE side and your PvP side together, make them work in harmony, you're really going to get what this game offers in spades. That's about it for this video. Those of you who did make it to the very end of the video, thank you very much for sticking with it. I know it's very different from things that we've done before, but I think it was extremely important to go ahead and get some of those lessons learned from our somewhat messy merger out there, so that other alliances, this is probably going to be a thing that happens more and more often. It looks like Scopely is creating new servers with increased frequency, so some of these servers, like myself, server 62 here, there's a server 73 the last time that I looked. There's 11 more servers newer than the one that we're at, and all of those are getting the newer players that we're not getting. We do get some new players still, but if you're trying to grow your alliance, you have to hit a certain point where you realize that you're not getting the bulk of the new players like you were. You have to find other ways to bolster your numbers if you want to be competitive or grow your group back up. Merging is going to be a thing that happens more and more in this game, especially once servers merge. There's going to be a lot of alliances probably merging or bringing smaller groups of players into larger groups of players, and hopefully these tips that we've put forth in this video will help make that transition a little easier so people can get back to enjoying the game, which is why you downloaded it in the first place. Live long and prosper, my friends. Thank you very much for watching, and we will see you next time.